Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we've got a very special lesson for you all about time.
That's right. We're going to concentrate a little bit on some specific points of grammar this time, and we're going to talk about the morning routine, what you do in the mornings.
Well, let's take a look first at the word routine. This is our vocabulary preview for today.
Vocabulary preview.
All right, so a routine or the morning routine. What is a routine?
A routine is basically your habit for a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. So, for example, your routine in the morning is what you do when you wake up.
Right.
Get breakfast and go to work. You can also have an evening routine. Mm-hmm. It's what you always do before you go to bed.
Exactly. So everyone has a routine, what they do in the mornings, maybe what you do at night before going to bed. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
That's right. You can also have an exercise routine. So basically anything with steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you always do the same way. That's the routine.
Exactly, right. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Why don't we jump right into our dialogue and listen to Stephanie's routine.
Stephanie, did you just get to school? But you were up and about when I left the dorm this morning. That was about an hour and a half ago. This happens all the time. Why do you always take so long to get ready in the mornings?
It's a skill. What can I say? I don't know why. I just have a long routine.
Please explain, because it makes no sense to me. How can a girl's routine be so complicated? You get up, you shower, you get dressed, you brush your teeth, you're out the door. Half an hour tops.
Jacob, you have the luxury of having a haircut that rarely needs styling. I don't. I have to set aside about an hour and a half to get ready in the mornings. Every day, I wake up and head straight for the shower. Every second day, I wash my hair. If it's a hair washing day, I frequently need to wash my hair twice because it gets really oily. Then I usually put in a conditioner and have to rinse that out too. Because my hair is so long, I seldom manage to take a shower in under 20 minutes. Afterwards, I often put on a pot of coffee and get dressed while I wait for it to brew. I take a long time to get dressed in the morning. Every now and then I remember to choose my outfit the night before, but usually I do it in the morning. In all, getting dressed takes about half an hour, at which time my hair is now semi-dry, so then I have to style my hair. From time to time, I'll put my hair up, but oftentimes I blow dry it straight. And then, because of the texture of my hair, I regularly have to flat iron it to keep it from frizzing. That's another 20 minutes or so. After that, I have my daily makeup routine.
True, I hardly ever see you without your hair done and your makeup on, even when you show up to class in sweatpants. Tell me, how long does it take you to choose that outfit in the morning?
Not funny.
All right, we're back. So obviously she has a very complicated routine. I don't know if all girls are like this.
I'm not like this, but I think a lot of girls and some guys are.
Really?
I don't want to be sexist here. I know some guys who take their time in the morning and are very, very particular about the way that they look.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I imagine everyone has their morning routine in different ways. And it was interesting to see how she described it. So why don't we take a look at language takeaway?
Language takeaway.
So today's language takeaway, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, is all about time. So we're going to look at some of these important time adverbs.
That's right. These are called adverbs of frequency. And basically, they are telling us how we do things. If we do something all the time or if we never do something.
Or everything in between.
Exactly.
So the first couple we have today are very, very common words. You're going to hear these a lot. The first one is frequently.
Okay, frequently. So if you do something frequently, consider it to be about 75% of the time, maybe a little bit more, almost 85% of the time.
Right, so it's not always, but it's very often. So for example, I frequently forget to take my keys when I'm leaving the house, which is a very big problem.
Exactly. So considering out of 7 days, maybe you forget your keys 5 days.
Not so good.
All right. So that's frequently. Now let's move on to another one that's actually a lot less. We talk about seldom.
Well, Marco has told me that he seldom forgets his keys. That means he almost always remembers them.
Right. So seldom is a negative adverb. It's saying that almost never. Okay, so if I say, for example, I seldom go to the movies.
That's too bad. I like the movies.
Right? Well, that means that I maybe go to the movie theater once a month.
Yeah, not very often.
Not
seldom.
very often. Seldom. All right, now going back to a positive adverb of frequency, we have often. You described frequently as very often.
That's right. So I could also say, I often forget my keys, or it often rains in tropical places. This means this is a common thing.
Exactly. So again, let's consider it to be about 70 to 80% of the time. Now, with pronunciation, some people like to pronounce often, right? They kind of leave out the strong T sound, while other people say often.
That's right.
Both forms are correct, right?
Yes, they're both correct. So you're safe using either of these.
Right. Okay. And our third adverb of frequency, no, our fourth. And our fourth adverb of frequency is also a positive one, and we say usually.
Usually means this is something that you do pretty consistently. I usually brush my hair before I go to sleep. That means not always, but almost every day.
Right. So let's consider out of 7 days, you do it 6 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
I usually do this.
Okay. So usually is, again, very, very common. And something in between, maybe 60% of the time, 50% of the time, we say regularly.
Well, I think of the word regularly as being very closely related to regular. So basically, if I have a schedule, I do the same thing every day. I do it regularly. But sometimes there's a special occasion. For example, I regularly run 5 kilometers after work when I go to the gym. But sometimes when I want to go out with my friends, I don't run. So
Right.
it's not always, but it is pretty regular.
Exactly. So regularly means you do it very often, but there are some exceptions. Okay. Now, those are our adverbs of frequency, but we have a couple of other phrases that are very similar, so we want to take a look at those as well. Let's go back to the beginning of Stephanie's routine when she said that every day I wake up. Okay, so every day means 100% of the time, every single day.
Monday to Sunday.
Exactly. So obviously you wake up every day.
Or I brush my teeth twice every day.
So that's 100% of the time. Now, if we say every second day, what does that mean?
That means Monday, yes. Tuesday, no. Wednesday, yes. Thursday, no. Or any day. So basically, she says, I wash my hair every second day. That means one day I wash my hair, but the next day I don't. The day after that, though, I wash it again. Every second day.
Okay, so you can say every second day, and I think you can also say every other day, right?
Every other day.
So every other day or every second day.
He calls his mother every other day.
Very good. All right. And she also said that every now and then I remember to choose my outfit.
Okay, well, this one's interesting. This is not very frequent.
Parts and materials from all over the world. They may be shipped to multiple locations for processing, and once it's ready and packaged, it may travel long distances to make it to your neighborhood. This enormous network of information, people, materials, and processes is called a supply chain. And the people who coordinate everything are involved in supply chain management. Good supply chain management can make the difference between a happy customer and an angry customer, and between profit and loss. In this lesson, we'll listen to a meeting at a clothing company with a complex supply chain connecting the US and Asia. During the meeting, the colleagues use many English expressions we call collocations. Collocations are simply natural, frequently occurring combinations of words. A good example of a collocation is supply chain management. Native English speakers use collocations like this automatically, and specific groups of people or fields of work have certain collocations they commonly use. By studying these collocations, you'll improve your vocabulary and sound more fluent. As you listen to the conversation, try to pick out some of these collocations, and we'll discuss them later in the debrief. In the dialogue, we'll hear Cam and Tanya. Cam is a production planner for Boston Vintage in the US. Tanya is a supply chain manager helping to develop the company's supply chain in Southeast Asia. Cam and Tanya use many collocations specific to supply chain management in their conversation about the manufacturing side of the supply chain. As you listen to the dialogue, try to answer the following questions. 1. What is Tanya's first big concern on the manufacturing side of things? 2. What does Cam say that people on the ground have expectations about? 3. What does Tanya say will increase costs but help manage risk?
All right. Happy to talk all this through, Tanya. But just so I know, you haven't actually started talking to possible 3PLs yet, or have you?
No. Wanted to get clarity on the goals first. And that's what I'd love your input on, since you're familiar with the production scheduling.
Right. So, what are your concerns there?
Well, off the bat, a couple of big concerns on the manufacturing side. For one, we really need to reduce excess inventory. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're on this. But just a heads up, this won't be easy. As we grow retail there, projecting demand will be a challenge. Moving targets, so to speak.
Duly noted. Still a priority, though. And if we can identify potential bottlenecks and work to eliminate those bottlenecks, I think we can get a lot leaner, even while we increase volume.
Good to hear. But I know there are people on the ground there who have certain expectations around lead times, and you're going to have to manage those expectations.
For sure. I've floated some ideas with the team already, but this is the kind of thing I need to hear. Now, number 2 concern: the risk of depending on just a few suppliers. It looks great to have these blanket purchase orders in terms of cost savings, but we just saw what happens when one of them experiences a slowdown.
Yeah, was that a COVID thing? Did they have an outbreak?
They did. I get that these things happen, but this kind of supply chain disruption doesn't have to be quite so hard on us.
If we spread the risk.
Precisely. And I realize there's pressure to hold costs flat, but risk management has a price. And so we'll be looking at sourcing materials from some different suppliers. That'll increase costs.
Okay, well, I guess it depends on how well we negotiate pricing. But on the financial front, won't using a 3PL pay for itself in terms of other cost savings, efficiencies and all that?
Remains to be seen, but it should pay off long term.
Now let's go through the dialogue again and look at the language and collocations Cam and Tanya used in their conversation. At the start, we hear Cam asking about possible 3PLs. 3PL means third-party logistics, which is a third-party business that helps coordinate parts of the supply chain.
All right. Happy to talk all this through, Tanya. But just so I know, you haven't actually started talking to possible 3PLs yet, or have you?
No. Wanted to get clarity on the goals first. And that's what I'd love your input on, since you're familiar with the production scheduling.
Before talking to 3PLs that might help build out Boston Vintage's manufacturing supply chain, Tanya wants to be clear about their goals. And she feels Cam will have good information on this since he's familiar with production scheduling. A lot of supply chain management involves scheduling. To produce goods, someone needs to ensure materials are in the right place at the right time. Also, that people, machines, and other resources are organized to do the work. Production scheduling is an important collocation, so let's try some more examples.
With more efficient production scheduling, we can increase output.
Our production scheduling review supports adding a night shift.
Let's hear Cam and Tanya talk about their first concern.
Right. So, what are your concerns there?
Well, off the bat, a couple of big concerns on the manufacturing side. For one, we really need to reduce excess inventory. We've talked about that before.
Off the bat or at the start, Tanya wants to talk about reducing excess inventory. Inventory refers to goods and materials a company has in stock or immediately available. Generally speaking, companies don't want to have too much or excess inventory hanging around. It takes up space and loses value. For this reason, companies try to reduce excess inventory. What are some ways we can talk about reducing excess inventory? Let's run through some more examples.
We're offering big discounts on last year's products to reduce excess inventory.
To reduce excess inventory, can we return some materials to the supplier?
What does Cam think about the goal of reducing excess inventory?
Yeah, and I'm glad you're on this. But just a heads up, this won't be easy. As we grow retail there, projecting demand will be a challenge, moving target, so to speak.
Cam is happy to hear Tanya talk about reducing inventory, but he wants to give her some important information, or a heads up, as he says. He points out that it will be difficult to project demand. Demand is how much of something is needed or wanted. In this case, they're talking about how much of their product is being ordered. When you project something, you are making a guess about a future number. So projecting demand is about accurately predicting how much of something is needed in the future. Projecting demand is certainly an important part of managing inventory and of supply chain management in general. Let's practice some more examples of this collocation.
We're projecting demand for our running shoes will continue to grow.
Sales data from the past several years should help us project demand for services.
Now let's hear how Tanya responds to Cam's heads up.
Duly noted. Still a priority, though. And if we can identify potential bottlenecks and work to eliminate those bottlenecks, I think we can get a lot leaner, even while we increase volume.
Tanya uses the expression duly noted as a way of saying I understand and I will take that into consideration. She understands that projecting demand is difficult, but she still thinks they can reduce excess inventory to get leaner or more efficient as a company. Another part of getting leaner is identifying and eliminating bottlenecks. Think of a bottle. Now think of what determines how fast liquid can flow out of the bottle. It's the narrowest part, or the neck, that determines that flow. In a process, a bottleneck is a point where there is a problem or a block. That problem causes the whole process to slow down, and in manufacturing, it can also lead to excess inventory. So, bottlenecks in supply chains need to be identified or located and eliminated or removed. Let's try some more examples of these collocations.
We've identified the bottleneck at the plant. Looks like one machine is slow.
Increasing our truck fleet should help eliminate the delivery bottlenecks.
Tanya used one more useful collocation in her discussion about bottlenecks. She said they can get leaner even while they increase volume. Volume refers to how much. In this case, it's about how much they produce. So increasing production volume means making more of something. Let's try some more examples of increasing volume.
I've talked to the plant manager about adding a shift to increase production volume.
Our new marketing campaign has increased sales volume by 13%.
Cam has another bit of advice for Tanya.
Good to hear. But I know there are people on the ground there who have certain expectations around lead times, and you're going to have to manage those expectations.
Cam is talking about a really important idea in production scheduling called lead time. Basically, lead time is the time it takes between the order of a product and its final delivery. That includes all the steps and processes in the supply chain, from materials to manufacturing to distribution. Cam's point is that people have expectations about lead times, and Tanya will have to manage those expectations. Can she ensure the same lead times while they increase volume and reduce excess inventory? That's her big challenge. Let's practice some more ways of using this expression, lead time.
With a shortage of materials, our lead times are up to 4 weeks on most orders.
Sharing sales data with our suppliers has helped us reduce lead times.
Now let's get back to the dialogue as Tanya discusses another major concern in the manufacturing supply chain.
For sure. I've floated some ideas with the team already, but this is the kind of thing I need to hear. Now, number 2 concern, the risk of depending on just a few suppliers. It looks great to have these blanket purchase orders in terms of cost savings, but we just saw what happens when one of them experiences a slowdown.
The companies that provide you parts and materials are your suppliers. Sometimes you have many different suppliers for one material. Sometimes you have just one. And if you order a lot of materials from one supplier on an ongoing basis, sometimes you have a blanket purchase order. No, this isn't about buying blankets. It's called a blanket order because it covers a large area. A blanket purchase order is a single contract with set pricing for several deliveries over time, such as a year. Companies can save money with blanket purchase orders because they don't have to deal with price changes. Let's run through some more ways of using this collocation, blanket purchase order.
We have blanket purchase orders on materials we buy repeatedly.
We've managed to lock in a good price for the year with this blanket purchase order.
Now, although blanket purchase orders can help you save money, Tanya is worried that having too few suppliers is risky. She has pointed out that bad things can happen when a supplier has a slowdown or can't deliver as much as usual. Let's hear Cam and Tanya discuss this issue further.
They did. I get that these things happen, but this kind of supply chain disruption doesn't have to be quite so hard on us.
Turns out the supplier had a COVID outbreak. In other words, some workers got sick, and this led to a slowdown. This is just one example of what Tanya calls a supply chain disruption. A disruption is anything that breaks a flow or interrupts a process. In the supply chain, this could be caused by many things, such as a broken machine, a factory strike, a natural disaster, a lack of shipping capacity, or a shortage of supplies. Supply chain disruptions are definitely something you want to avoid. Let's try some more examples of this collocation.
With the floods in Taiwan, there's been major semiconductor supply disruption.
Supply disruption is a huge risk for us, given all our parts come from one company.
Tanya's point is that things like the COVID outbreak at the supplier don't have to be so damaging. Now let's hear them talk about dealing with these risks.
If we spread the risk,
Precisely. And I realize there's pressure to hold costs flat, but risk management has a price.
They're beginning to talk about suppliers in the context of risk and about ways of spreading or sharing the risk. Of course, everything has a price, including managing risk, as Tanya mentions. The challenge here is that there are people in the company who want to hold costs flat. If costs are flat, they don't increase. If we hold costs flat, then we take steps to make sure costs don't go up. We can hear this collocation in many different contexts, including supply chain management. Let's try some more ways of talking about holding costs flat.
With shipping getting more expensive, we need to make cuts to hold costs flat.
Until we see sales improve, we'll have to find ways to hold costs flat.
In the final analysis, Tanya is saying that costs won't be held flat, as we can hear.
And so we'll be looking at sourcing materials from some different suppliers. That'll increase costs.
Materials are the things that you use to create goods. For Boston Vintage, that would mean textiles or fabrics and things like buttons, zippers, and thread. Sourcing materials simply means finding people or companies that can supply them to you. What are some other ways of using this collocation to source materials? Let's practice a few more examples.
This new trade agreement means we can source materials throughout Asia.
Our buyers are sourcing better materials from a wider variety of suppliers.
Will costs really increase? Well, that depends, according to Cam.
Okay, well, I guess it depends on how well we negotiate pricing.
Tanya has talked about finding different suppliers, and that will mean coming to terms or negotiating pricing. Part of sourcing materials from different suppliers is agreeing on price, and price is negotiable. You've probably heard negotiate without an object, but now you can see we can often use it with an object too, and that object is often pricing. Let's run through some more ways of using the collocation to negotiate pricing.
We're happy with the product. Now we just need to negotiate a good price.
Negotiating better pricing will be easier if we commit to larger orders.
Now let's finish off as the pair continue discussing costs.
But on the financial front, won't using a 3PL pay for itself in terms of other cost savings, efficiencies and all that?
Remains to be seen, but it should pay off long term.
Supply chain management is complex, not just in terms of planning, but also in terms of costs. They're talking about getting a third-party logistics company to help, which might actually save money. But then finding more suppliers might raise costs. As Tanya says, the final tally remains to be seen. In other words, it's too soon to really tell whether the changes will save or cost money. Now it's your turn to practice some of the collocations we've looked at in this lesson. In a moment, you'll hear a series of sentences with a word replaced with a beep. Repeat the whole sentence, including the missing word. Remember, a collocation is two or more words that we commonly use together, so pay close attention to the words before the beep. For example, if you hear,
We need to find some creative ways to hold costs.
you can say,
We need to find some creative ways to hold costs flat.
after each response, we'll provide the correct answer. Ready? Let's give it a go.
With this huge order, we'll need to increase production quickly.